All right, so week 3, I did not get any of the buildings done that I wanted to. So we're just going to pick up right where we left off last week. Um, just the angle, it is going to be a little crooked. Trying to bring it closer close enough for you guys to see better, but not so close that I trip on the camera on the legs. Hold on. All right. Well, bringing it in closer made it more crooked. So just ignore the crooked. But at least it's a little bit closer. You can see a little bit better about what I'm doing when we get there. So because I want to get to people, I'm going to be focusing a lot on the in-betweens of the people. And then just so we can get going on simplifying their shapes and, simplifying, you can get a couple of quick notations of the person and then be done. Or those couple of quick notations can be your beginning. So if you like a lot of detail, especially in these folks in the foreground, the quick, loose notations of the people are just to get you started. If you're trying to loosen up, if your goal is to loosen up, what we do in the beginning will be enough and you'll be able to just move on. So all very personal decisions to make as you go. And sometimes I like to just recommend if you just live with it for a little while. If it's something that you're not sure about, if it's loose and you want to be looser and that's your goal, but it's really a struggle to leave it that way, just leave it that way for a little bit. Don't call it finished. Just leave it and then keep looking at it. And then you can decide. Sometimes it's just not the right thing to do. So I have to ignore some of the stuff that I really don't like about the buildings. I felt like my buildings were starting to get a little bit muddy back here. Like I said, I'm just going to start off with the in between the people and some of the street, and then I'll go back and adjust the buildings once we get some people in place. So thinking about negative space before the people. Like I said, I don't have the same exact sticks, so I'm just going to start, which probably really isn't a big deal. But I'm just going to start laying down some groundwork, literally groundwork. I'm going to start with that sidewalk. And I'm just going to go in the purpley kind of family. We're going to see. It's a little bit darker, which is fine because the sidewalk is darker than the street, which is, I have a different board up, which is darker than the curb. I had a line in here indicating basically where the sidewalk would be from that beginning single point perspective that we started with. So it's a very faint line. I doubt you can see it on camera, but it runs all the way through to the focal point. So the curb, then the sidewalk, then the focal point, or the line to the focal point. So those guys overlap one another. I'm talking out loud about trying to remember everything, right, from last weekend. Last week. So then these become that nice big grouping of people, right? And this side, I started to eliminate things. So it's all a bit of a blur on the right side. It's almost like I'm giving myself a recap of our meeting from last week. Talking myself through what the heck I did. It's just a nice light gray. Just laying that in for that curb. This is one of those Soho pastels, that set that, yeah, $50 or $60 set for the 92 sticks. I still like most of them for the most part. I like them. They
How
don't.
How do they work with the other pastels?
Well, they are definitely a stick that likes to be down first.
Oh, okay.
They work nicely with blending colors. And some of the colors you think would be strong on their own are just not.
Oh.
So, and that just goes down to the basics of pigment versus binder. And then it's, that's, you know what I mean? That kind of. So I'm not doing really stiff lines, but I am getting pretty close to the folks in the street, right up to their edges. I'm not worried about their shadows just yet. They're not very big shadows, so I can just kind of knock them in there when I'm ready. And if I need to, I can scrape some away. So this was a pretty much just a gray. I'm gonna go into a little bit of the blue family, a light gray blue. Back up in here. Now, when I start to get to those mobs of people in the back, or towards the focal point, this is where our camera makes everything really dark in the distance instead of kind of muted like we would actually see it. It really kind of brightens it up and pushes it. So you don't have to just grab a black and start marking in people. A dark color is fine, but you don't have to go straight for black. So just kind of think about your color choices is what I'm trying to say. Something other than black for a minute. I'm not saying we won't use black, but I just don't want to start with black. I like that blue. It's definitely not the end of. Right now, I'm just kind of gently layering everything, so it's giving more of a textury kind of a look, which is nice for any kind of a pavement. Thank goodness this isn't a cobblestone street like every other street seems to be. Seeing women walk down the street in heels, you're like amazed that they're still standing and not crippled.
Right, or injuries.
Yeah. Okay. All right, now I'm going to kind of start to bring down the building colors a little bit. Again, just getting in between. A very pumpkin kind of color. Again, it's a Soho. That's right, he had a bag of some sort. I'm going to take that right down to the sidewalk. It's almost like, paint by number at a certain point because you're trying to go around things and you just, for the most part, you really just can't avoid that feeling sometimes, I mean, if you get to like really little images of people, yes, you can paint what's behind it and then just plop the people on top of it. But in this situation, it's not it's not beneficial. It's not like, an oil painting where you can let it dry and then you can plop in people on top, or acrylic, something like that. Here we really have to, make sure we have the space on the tooth so that we can get there without, muddying things up. We want these markings to be nice and crisp and simple. And if we have full tooth, that's not going to happen. Not without a lot of adjustments. And I said I wouldn't really mess with the buildings, and I'm messing with the buildings. Just some things I can't ignore. Well, that made it worse. That's all right. Okay. See. It's a little too hard. I was going into the pink family for the sidewalk because there's some nice reflections on that grayish, purplish kind of thing, but that one was a little too hard. Right now, my sidewalk's a little too dark as well. This is a little bit of like a mauve kind of a color. This is where it does get a little tricky, and you're trying to be loose and you're trying to be free. And then you have all these tight little spaces where you're like, oh, I can't really be loose and free. But it takes a lot of training of your brain to get to that point of getting that believable, where it just looks like, when you're walking down the street, there's a painting and there's people are like, that's, my grandson can do that. And you're looking at the painting going, I know darn well that just because it looks nice and loose and simple, that it takes a long time to develop the skills to keep something nice and loose and simple. Kind of ignoring the picture for just a second, trying to keep the lines, but some of that got a little muddy with the browns and the yellows. Just want to I like the buildings on the right, which were barely buildings because they had all that scaffolding, which I was trying to ignore. So, this is kind of a light pink. And I'm just going over, and again, leaving some texture, going over some of the neutral, more distant buildings. Kind of like that, I guess. Yeah, I usually stay away from browns in general, and I think this painting is one of those reasons why I get myself in trouble. It's like the first time I bought there is a Terry Ludwig set of neutrals, and I was very excited. The neutrals are all a bunch of different types of grays, and I made the muddiest paintings. I thought this will be perfect for rainy day scenes and foggy scenes and all. I made a mess, but
Oh,
you know,
happens.
it happens. You figure it out later. But that's kind of what I'm using right now is just a bunch of neutrals. Oh, that'll be good. Sorry, this board is shaking a lot. You want to get some of this stonework kind of touch further along. There's a lot of today. I feel like I'm gonna be full of hoops.
Oh.
Might be changing the city that this is, adding more color.
Bahamas.
Right?
Bermuda.
Bermuda. Something much more tropical. I don't know. A city anywhere in the world. I was talking to the gallery owner in Kennett Square, and we were talking about the upcoming show, and I had mentioned I had some paintings from Italy, and she said, well, she's like,
Okay.
not, people don't really like to buy things from other places. They like to buy things that are
Really?
depictions of what they see around them.
Wow.
And
Sure.
she's like, Southwest paintings don't work here.
Yeah.
She's like, even birds, she said, even paintings of birds that aren't local birds don't sell.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's like you have to find that relation, like that connection,
Mhm.
and then you can kind of go from there. If you don't have a connection, people tend to not buy it regardless because there's not that personal connection.
Mhm.
So I really like her. She takes the time to talk to you about
Mhm.
the business and what she sees in her perspective, which is so nice to have somebody that shares that instead of just saying yes, no, no.
Yeah, right.
And she used to be a nurse, and she decided the opportunity came to buy the gallery, and she bought the gallery about,
Wow.
I don't know.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, just a couple years before the pandemic.
Mm.
Yeah. And she's made it through. It's a great location. And she's real smart and
I've
real
never
kind.
been there, Kennett Square.
It's such a cute little
I have a
town.
friend from there, but I've never been.
It's such a cute little town. I really like it. They do this thing where they do third Thursdays.
Mhm.
And in the summertime, third Thursdays means they close the streets
Mhm.
and they have the restaurants can come out and have, seating in the streets. It's just, and the places are just packed. And apparently there's a mushroom festival.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's the mushroom capital of the world.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
It's Kennett
Um,
Square, yeah.
Yeah. So I was trying to deliver a painting. She's like, no, we can't do that day. And she's like, there's the mushroom festival. She's like, there's 10,000 people that come through. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. So
Crazy.
yeah. But it's got the foot traffic, which is nice. Okay, so I'm already starting to, I just started to kind of, again, almost a little paint by numbery, filling in, that's the lady's bag, starting into that. So, here we go. I'm gonna start working on people. I've got enough information around them that I can tweak later.
Good morning, Cappy. My dog just got up. I gotta let him out.
Oh, don't give her a treat.
Light sleeper.
Oh. Mother's texting me.
Come get this ball.
Let's see here. All right, so let me just think about this. I'm just going to kind of talk through some things here. We have a lot of people wearing dark. Like, so these two ladies, you know, she's got a black dress. This looks like she's in all black. She's gray and white, so that's good. This guy's got like a black suit and the blue shirt. He's got black pants. There's a lot of black pants floating around up here. You know, take liberties with that. It doesn't have to be all black. I did like the girl having the blue dress on. So maybe I'll bring in a blue and that'll start to tie in the flag. And so things like, again, having your eye wander, you know, I'm muting this whole background here where the focal point ends. And then I'm going to have all these little points of red to red, and I'll put a red down here, and I'll have blue to blue, and I'll put a blue down here on his shirt. And like, so just so the eye kind of travels around. I don't care for paintings where I'm only looking at one thing. I want there to be an experience of the whole thing, because I didn't just paint that center. I painted everything else around it. Look at it, man. So I'm going to take a couple of different blues and just, again, just to get them started, I'm not going to, like, there's going to be more, you know, we have highlights, we have some shadows. So I'm just going to start with her dress, and I'm going to keep it super simple, right? I'm just going to block it in there. I'm on the side. Just generally speaking, in the shape that I started. Okay. I'm gonna throw in a little bit of shadow. Now, granted, we've got all that light coming from directly the top, so a lot of it is in shadow, right? That's her big old bag, which I can make her bag a different color. It doesn't have to be white. But I'm gonna just keep focusing on blue for a minute. All the locations that the blues are in. This guy's shirt might be a little bit brighter than he intended it to be. Have to make sure I don't go past. See, I have a line here for his hip bone. I don't want to go to his hip bone. I'll let that be. I'll put some highlights in here. And again, nobody really has to know that it's a business shirt. I just put a little block of blue in the back there to start to build up some people. I didn't do anything like specific. I just looked that there's a guy here, which goes in line with the guy in the bicycle. So I just put a little dab of color into that back there. I am, though, gonna go grab, just so I'm not messing with figuring out colors, I'm gonna go grab my portrait set real quick so I can just get some flash colors that I don't have to test too much. I did bring out my new pastels, which I'll try to kind of ignore. I don't want to have something too small in my hand, like a pencil, just because I'm trying to stay loose. I don't necessarily want to get crazy over the top. Okay. So her back leg, the girl that I just painted her dress on, her back leg has a lot of shadow. But I'm looking at the colors and they look very similar to some of the buildings, and I don't want her legs. And see, I'm just making these real quick notations. This is where I'm not just coloring, we're just kind of putting a little bit more into it. I'm staring at my colors right now, if you're wondering what I'm doing. I'm looking at these going, that's not the right jump. That works. This is very similar in value, so I have room to brighten it up. You're not going to see much difference on the screen, I don't think. But I can use this bright color on her shoulders. It's a little on the pink side. That's all right. How you doing back there, Maura?
I'm good.
It was a heavy sigh.
Yes, it was.
I'll deal with her sandal in a minute. Let's see, is there anybody else I can use that little bit of fleshy brightness on? Maybe not right now. Okay, let me put that back.
Yeah. Happy.
Nice.
And these are crooked, I can tell. Try it.
It's just a smidge.
Yeah, I'll fix it.
Yeah, you can, yeah, with the building, you can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Again, I'm not worried about their shadows just yet, which it's going to be fun because the shadows can help hide some of the feet. So if you have a problem with the feet and the positioning of, this guy's foot is lifting up and this one's down and blah, 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 you can kind of work on it that way. At letting it fall into the shadows. All right, let's see. What color? I'm going to make her bag into the green family. So there's little shadow shapes. There's little crinkles I'm going to do first. And again, keeping it nice and loose. I have a new pastel in my hand because it was the color that I wanted. Her bag is really bigger than I should be. That's okay. Hold on. Let me make this some blue. That's her dress. It's okay. Let's see. I think that's bright enough. It is not. Super bright. Here we go. And again, none of this is going to be perfect. And I'm just going to keep going for a while, right? I'm not going to stress and worry about certain little things. I'm just going to keep going. Let me see. Let's give her some nice dark hair. She's got that little bun. Get a little highlight. sun is shining. Top of that bun. She's bootylicious. She's got a butt. All right, let's see. The lady next to her, I'm gonna put her in like a really dark turquoisey teal color for right now, which is gonna look very gray. I think it's very similar to the one I used for the windows. And then I can add different colors on it for highlights and things like that. But for right now, let's get these quick. And she's got some blonde hair. But let's see. Bottom looks a little, again, looks very similar to the building. Guess I should have thought a little more about that. Do you match the building you're standing next to? Didn't really think I would have to worry about that.
You want this, Gabby? Sit.
There we go. Nice, kind of purpley. There, she's wearing a scarf. Now it's a scarf. I've changed her whole look. Crickets are
I
there.
thought it was your phone.
No, I know, right? That's how that. Well, they're everywhere. Like I can't.
Yeah, it might have something to do with the winter coming.
Yeah, and they are this year, like walking through the backyard, the babies are jumping everywhere, and there's so many in my house right now. Kaiser used to chase them, but he doesn't care anymore. I'm like, really? Come on. Let's see. I'm gonna look at red again for a minute because the guy here is carrying a nice little red bag that I had notated. That's a little orangey.
You made her blue too on purpose, right?
I did make her
Like-
blue on purpose. I
Yeah.
just decided instead of there's a lot of black in this. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to bring red into the light without going the wrong way. So just like in clouds and such, you might have to add yellows
Mhm.
and then put the reds back on. So I think that's what I'm gonna have. I know it's silly, it's just a little bag, but it's got a little glow to it. So let me put some yellow in there. That is not a strong yellow. It's very dull. Okay. I think that's the universe telling me to stop messing with it. All right, I'll move on. Let's see. We've got somebody with some red shorts. I'll just make a little dot of red. We've got that bright green helmet on the bicyclist here. I placed him right here. So I can put that bright green for his head. Almost like a mosaic at some point too, you know, where we're just filling in those little blocks, color and people. much in shadow. His face is all in shadow. So I'm just gonna start off with like some of these guys, these two guys in the center, their faces are pretty much in complete shadow. So I'm just starting with filling in some of that just color and shadow, right? I'm not worried about their features just yet. I'll get there. A lot of folks are in shadow. It is funny, like how, as just a world of people, we don't wear a lot of color. I mean, there's a lot of black, white, and gray, and blue jeans. I'm gonna give our guy in this suit like it's a really dark navy instead of black for right now. And then I'm going to change the color of his bag so we can see that it's actually a bag on his other side, the red. So there, his suit's starting to come out. That's not terrible. Let's see. I made it kind of a dark green, but it's not very exciting. Get some shadow in there. Give him some nice dark hair as well. We don't have to give him too much hair. Just a hint. That's wearing a ball cap. I'll give it an almost white, not quite white, almost white. I'll have to update that. That's not going to stand out quite right just yet. I am putting a light on his shoulders, but it's not really showing right now because of nothing else being around it. Oops. He's got a nice pink shirt on. What's nice about his shirt is that it's got the sunlight shining down on top, but it's leaving little hints of other colors, like the light's hitting it in a way that it's not just a singular color. Okay, even a little. This shirt. See, I'm overcomplicating it. Overcomplicating. That is something I was talking about that yesterday. I either overcomplicate or I oversimplify. And so either one can bite me in the butt no matter what. Like, you know, overcomplicating, pain in the butt, oversimplifying leaves you wanting to do more. Either one can cause trouble. That's a little better. Let's see. Yeah. It is arm. Leg action. Yeah, there's not a lot to talk about, and it's kind of boring for a little while. Right? I feel bad. I don't really have a whole lot of like words of wisdom to share because I'm just filling in the blanks. Give him some sneakers. They look very gray right now because they're in shadow. I'll just put them there. Again, I'm doing my best to not overthink things like feet and shadow and stuff like that because I don't want it to be overly worked. The second you start to work too hard, then it's obvious if something's wrong. If you're just kind of loosely laying something in there and it's not quite right, it reads a little bit better. But if you're really tight about it, it's gonna be like, oh, that's super wrong. I just made him kind of knock me. They first appreciate them. How's everybody doing at home? Anybody need any assistance?
Like a hose.
Like a hose.
Yeah, right.
I need a hose right now. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, clean up and aisle.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all right. Well, I'm still not like 100% happy with half of the stuff that I'm putting down, but it's okay. It's okay. Just keep telling yourself it's okay. Let's see, give her some black sandals. Right, this guy, I skipped like the bright stuff between when I was doing that initial setup here. I didn't get quite in between his leg. Pardon me, sir. Let's see. No, place her there. Whew.
Sorry.
All right, it is hard.
It's
It
so
is
hard.
hard. Step back. We've been working for 45
Mhm.
minutes, so step back, see how things are shaping up and forming. If you've been working like me on everybody in the foreground, I'm gonna switch to the distance for a little bit, just because different mark makings, different, all kinds of different things to look at. That's part of the problem too. It's waste. Thanks to me when I shouldn't have. So I'm looking at this guy's legs and feet, and it's really bothering me. So I had the position of his foot wrong. So his foot is actually hanging in air right now, right? It's like the whole foot. There we go. Without really making his whole foot hang in air. That's a little bit better. There's something goofy though with the way his shorts are hanging. I'll have to figure that out. Soon enough. But right now. All right, so now I'm gonna switch gears and go towards the back, right? This is where things get even more simplified and loose because there's a lot of information we couldn't see if we even got out a magnifying glass. It doesn't really matter. Good. Good. So I'm going to start with some simplified, even more simplified information here. So I'm looking at colors right now. I'm going to pick, this is a nice, let me see how dark this is. A nice darker gray green. And I'm going to start to just kind of shimmy some information in. Everybody's and once I get this little bit of dark in, then I can start to emphasize a little more dark here, a little lighter there, get a little more, this is an actual leg, this is a real person, and we'll start to go there.
You start with the dark.
Yeah, I'm gonna just start with the dark and then build into little dots of color that equal the light. So it kind of already starts to look a little like a crowd ish, I'm just giving a little shimmy. I'm not pushing real hard. There's a ton of tooth. Here, I have to be careful of which sticks I use because now I have a little bit of color down. If I grab a stick that doesn't play well with others, it's just gonna make a smear. And here's a place I don't necessarily want a smear. I want something that's gonna stand on its own, kind of a thing.
Did you do the guy on the bike? You did great.
I did kind of put him in.
Suggested, right?
Yeah, I did his helmet, but then
Yeah, I know, like.
I think the helmet's my favorite part.
I know.
So now I have, this is the same color I used on the lady's suit up front. It's not black, it's that dark kind of a teal. It kind of works for that just suggestion of, you know, it could be dark pants or it could be dark hair and it could be.
Mhm.
I'm grabbing a real light blue for some of that extra light on people. I'm not going straight for pinks or whites or anything like that. I'm doing that because sometimes those colors just aren't strong on their own. But if I put the blue down first, I can make it a little stronger when I lay the other colors on top. And just be aware of the size of your marks as you go into the distance and the closer to everyone else. So, like back in here, I need to stay a little bit smaller. Up in here, as I get closer to the foreground, I can make it a little bit bigger. I haven't really, there's a couple of people like where the red shorts are. I'm going to tone that down a little bit, but for the most part, there's not one real person that I actually painted. I'm also going to be, you see how bright it is in between their legs on the photograph? So I'll go into that soon. Not quite yet, but I'll get there. Let's see. It's taking some more neutrals, looking for some heads, you know, for people.
The green helmet on.
The green helmet.
Let's do that.
I'm still quite sure how I want to make him just yet. Okay. So the dots for the heads that I'm kind of starting to work on here, it's another one of those things where you don't want to make a pattern, but you end up making patterns. So just take your time. Because I'm putting a darker red violet down, and then I can start to pop in sunlight that's hitting their hair, things like that. This is one of those times where I wish we didn't have to worry about music royalties. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. YouTube.
They do it all the time though.
I know, but
But-
like YouTube will scan your entire video before it will let you
does
put it. Yep. I can't
Mhm.
put it up until it's listened to my entire video to make sure I don't have any copyright infringements. They have music that you can use. Like
Yeah, you pick theirs.
yeah.
That they've already bought licensing.
Yeah. But
My son gets royalty checks every 3 months.
it's nice though. I mean, you know what? When you're the artist that they're doing it
Yeah.
for, you like it, but for
Right.
me who's just trying to
And most of it is off the streaming stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Or online. Most of it's not.
I kind of switched back to people in the foreground because I got a little,
Mhm.
little crazy.
Saw that.
So that's what I like to do because if I hyper focus for too long, I'll get really agitated.
Gotta clean these.
Your sticks are
Yes, the whole thing is a mess. I think must not even want to do it because the colors don't really look pretty.
yeah. Well, just get a container of cornmeal and shake it around. A little.
Yeah.
At least that's a little less labor intensive. I've done it before where I just take the whole and every singular stick I wipe down.
Right.
It's a pain and it takes forever and your
Yeah.
back hurts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it that way.
So how do you clean it with cornmeal?
If you just get a little bowl of cornmeal and then you just put the sticks in the bowl and shake it around,
Oh,
the cornmeal just cleans it. And
nice.
you can keep the cornmeal for a long time and just keep using the cornmeal to clean your sticks.
Huh, okay.
Yeah.
Good trick.
Yeah. And it's not like you don't like lose a lot of pastel off of it or anything. It's not like it's
Yeah, it's kind of
taken.
absorbent.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a nice simple little abrasive, but not too abrasive.
Mhm.
Oh, I've overcomplicated his shirt. Look at me go. Overcomplicating.
Hmm.
That's okay. I have been finding a bunch of my sticks have just been like crumbling. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know if it's just because they,
Back around.
I don't know. I mean, I could see that in my box, but I've been
Yeah.
having it in the studio too. I gotta give this guy some pants because his little floating shirt isn't doing me any good. Now I'm hyper focusing on his shirt that's a little overcomplicated. I did not finish this head. I have to. Now he's not a floating head. And this is where we still have to remember to use, pardon me, skewers and whatnot, because you know, when you're staying loose, sometimes you lose a shape. Like, wait, how big should his head really be? And things like that, we have to be a little more aware of. You know, sometimes we get that mark that's just a little too big and then it ruins everything. So, you know, just be aware of that kind of stuff. All right, I'm gonna take some light color. Let's see if this is too light. Okay. I'm gonna go a little bit of that whole opposite or negative space kind of painting, and I'm gonna start to bring some of that lighter color in between some of the people's pretend feet. Because now, you know, I haven't really made people back there, but I've made people back there. They're coming, right? Getting a little bit stronger mark up close. I've removed a lot on the right side, so I have to figure out how I'm handling that soon. Too.
I know.
I realized there's a bit of a blank space. Yeah. So I'm working on just a little bit of some kind of dimension here and there, adding some, you know, instead of just the solid color, I'm giving her a little bit of shadow shapes on her suit there. I do have a black in my hand now, so I'm adding little bits of black here and there where it's definitely shadowed and
On the ground or?
not on the ground yet, but I'll get there. I'm not far from that. But just kind of filling in where the people have dark clothes and bags, things like that.
Oh. Hi. Hi,
Maybe
yeah.
give a couple of people in the distance some really dark hair.
I don't know. I might be. I mean, I don't know.
And honestly, towards the closer you get to the center focal point, it can just think of pointillism. Just throw in a couple of dots and, you know.
Right.
later, but I've been over to play polish.
Still have a lot of paper showing, but you know, it's you want to find some of those neutral colors that aren't quite gray, but you know,
What I think of
just give a different kind of a.
Dustin's car with the car seat in there, and he'll come home, you know, around 6. But I have to keep it cool. And I'd rather at night I'd rather be home.
Little extra blue. Now here's the trick. I do see lots of kind of pinky kind of colors back in there. I'm not going to let myself get too carried away with those because I'm going to cause a big fat mess if I do. There's a lot of times that color doesn't read very well, or it'll smush and it won't be a strong color. But I do want to get, it looks like
I don't want to give in it.
a little bit of fleshy
Oh,
kind
she's
of
got
color.
a black bag.
The girl with the white,
Yeah,
Yeah.
black, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, I think I have.
All right, I'm gonna pause the recording for a minute and just everybody clear your eyes, take a little 5-minute breather.
And it's like, you know,
All right, back at it. It's about a little after 10 now. Pardon my big head coming through. So I was looking at this where her bag is. Let's see how I can update that. I'm not sure I like the way it was reading. I accidentally made it really big too. So maybe that's the first thing I'm gonna do is cut her bag down. Cut it down to size. Now, let's see, I can put, all right, so we've got the whole, I'm gonna change gears for a second. I'm gonna look at the sidewalk. Before I get too far into all these people, right? The sidewalk has that nice shadow line at the curb. So it's a nice bright stone-ish. And then the nice heavy shadow. So I'm getting the nice bright in first. Now with the shadow shape, I'm not gonna go crazy dark again because it's gonna detract from the rest of the painting. I don't need it to be, you know, huge black line in the middle of the painting. So let me get a good side here. This is kind of a heavy gray. I can always darken up a couple of spots of it. It's always a little bit of a challenge to get that curve because we immediately want to just draw a straight line. But this is where mark making comes into play. And if we have that straight line that we drew that way, that's what it becomes. Just a straight line that's going towards the focal point. So I kind of have to do it a little bit because I need to put it in place. And then I'm going to drag a little up and down. So you get that feeling that it's a curve that's dropping down with my mark making. So it's dark. In the photograph, it's a lot darker. I might punch it to a little bit darker because the folks wearing the dark suits around them are it's darker, so it wouldn't necessarily be on its own so dark. As with everything else, the lines that I'm making are not super sharp because nothing is super sharp in this painting. And if I started to put super sharp things, then it's gonna look off. This is can see an even darker charcoaly, it's kind of blue. I'm gonna start with that with some shadows. I wanna start to place those because it's fun. First shadow is a little bit longer. And remember, don't put a shadow if you don't have a person, as I almost just did. I almost just put that in there. Ah. So it looks like everything is a little bit longer to the left and shorter to the right. So again, just with the placement of the sun, not huge long shadows, but there's a shadow on each side indicating the location of the sun. And they're not super heavy. And so this color is kind of blending a little bit with the lighter colors that I have in place. I'm not worried about that just yet. But it is kind of fun for all these people in the distance. Gives that little bit of shadow back there. Guy on the bicycle, his shadow's fun.
Color are you using for that?
It's kind of like
I'm sorry, blue.
Yeah. It's in the portrait set.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's that sign. Oh, there's the giant cricket that's been talking to us the whole time.
I thought it was gonna rain all weekend. I don't know if it is. Is it?
I don't. Somebody was talking about rain tomorrow because they were aggravated.
Are you going up to your son's thing?
It rained,
See the game?
here,
They do have a game. I'm not going tomorrow. I am teaching tomorrow at Pine Shores, and then Sunday we're going to the football game, the Eagles. But
fun.
and then
That's
we're seeing Sam on the 11th of November for that game, so we can see the show, the whole show.
yeah.
So he actually called me yesterday. I was like, oh, that's always so nice when they call out of the blue. He's like, well, I was bored. I'm waiting for Nova. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. At least you thought of me when you were bored.
Yeah.
Now will talk to me. Yes, I will. You are right.
We're always like, oh God, what do they want?
So far, he's been really good about that. Like, he hasn't been like,
Yeah.
I need this, I need that.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't want to get too. I'm working with this navy blue that's like it's like an ultramarine, but it's really hard. I don't want any one person to be super tight
Detailed,
and
yeah.
detailed. So this is actually kind of helping. Like I don't want.
Is it a new pastel or no?
It's the Terry Ludwig that came out of the night set, and that whole night set is hard.
Wow, that's weird, right?
I think it was. I bought it a few years ago. I think it was like a new person. It didn't quite, you know. But this is kind of fun. I don't know if I'll regret it, but I'm adding like I don't like to see the paper,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I don't want to fill in things really tightly. So I'm just kind of dragging over a little bit, and it's kind of scuffing up things nicely.
Right.
Adding a little bit of shadow, but at the same time keeping things loose for me.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of those things that I can get carried away with, and I'm well aware of that, so I have to be
Huh.
careful. Same thing with lighter color too. This, oh my goodness, I picked up a brand that I know isn't going to make the mark I want.
Mm-hmm.
And the same kind of thing with the you know, how we were talking about, you know, the people being like trees, you know. So we're going back up in with the pushing down the dark and pulling down the dark and
Right.
pushing up the light. So
Mhm.
you can do the same thing at the top too with the heads. You
Yeah.
know, you can push back down in there light around where the heads are.
Mm-hmm.
This paint is probably a bad choice, but it's in my hand now. Okay. Yellow isn't quite right. White definitely isn't right. You know how it goes. So I'm just kind of moving around looking for stuff. One little crumbly piece in my hand. Words are dropping.
You're gonna give one of these to your brother-in-law?
I don't know. Well, I've been telling them like they could like watch because they didn't really necessarily say what they wanted. So I was like, well, you can just watch what I post
Yeah.
and then you know just pick. They kind of hinted. I know where they want a painting.
Uh-huh.
And I think they want like more of a painting of the Amalfi Coast. But I didn't really get any good pictures because the ferry we were on was so stinking crowded and the people were so rude. Like you
Yeah.
just couldn't get I did not get any good pictures of the coast. So I might just have to go off of Google for that too.
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
Yeah. I mean, especially if it's just for them. Yeah, it's not like
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You're not interested.
yeah. This is a new pastel that I'm using right now that I'm just kind of working into the building with the right up against the people. It's a little on the wrong yellowy orange side, but hair's too big. Situation. That's not well, that's okay. It's in my head.
What size is your picture?
I don't know. It's like On the back, I had,
18?
I wrote 12 by 18-ish, so
Yeah.
it was a scrap piece of paper that went,
Mhm.
you know. Right, so I think I'm looking at this lady's hair right here. She's blending in with the building. So she's got like this bright yellow on top. And then it's
Like a
dark.
white cream, maybe.
Yeah, I could just change her hair color completely to something else. I don't like the way it's looking. I can't go too orange, and so
No.
it might she just might get some dark hair too. Like who she's with that
Yeah.
way.
Hmm.
That reads a little bit better. I think I need to make that girl's shoulders a little bit wider. That's a problem. Bright white. Yeah. Hand is sitting there. So this guy's hand that's hanging down right here. I'm not gonna obviously. Yeah. All right. Well, that went really wrong. I don't want to do like fingers, right? We don't need all kinds of specific. Just a hint. And add a little bit of extra dark to some of the shadow spots, like not the whole shadow, but you know how shadows have like a super, like they have the darkest spot, and then it's just depending on the location. So I can add a little bit, especially in the foreground, people. So next week, we'll start a new piece, but we'll probably start with also the little refresher about the people by themselves with color. Meaning so that the mark making exercise of just simplifying the people. So we'll start with that, and then, you know, after having experienced some of the struggles with this one, then we can incorporate more of the simplification process on the next one. gotta step back for a little bit. I've got so much going on all at once. Have to determine where the heck I'm going with all this. It's great. I like the color palette. It's all kind of, even with all the different colors that are in there, the palette, it's still got this very lovely softness
Is
to
it
it.
warm or is it cool? I can't, I think I just put everything in it.
It's both. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it reads as one or the other,
Mhm.
but I think it's reading really nicely. Like, there's a lot of light back in here, and a little bit of heavier shadows, like darker colors. But I think it all works.
These could be a little bigger right here, right? In the front.
Yeah, you can make their legs come down just a touch
Yeah,
longer.
and fatter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one I might not do in 12 by 18. Go down a little bit. All right, I'm gonna work a little bit on the buildings for a little while. Just to give my
Brain a break.
Yeah, get something different in there. So much. I'm staring right now. For those of you who can't see what I'm doing, trying to decide which way to go. And the only thing that's, it's always fun. Again, we work on paper. We can always crop things out, right? But I'm gonna keep going. I was also just kind of looking at, if I cropped the top half off or something like that. I don't know. It becomes an odd shape though when you
I
on
use
sides.
all of your flags, which I think are really cool.
Have things.
And the colors in this first building. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta keep, and I have to, no matter what, I do have to do these bricks here. So maybe I'll focus on that for a minute.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The ones on the left?
Yep.
Yep, me too. That's what I was doing.
So I'm gonna take, oh gosh. Oh. Okay. So, I'm putting this new pastel in my hand, knowing that I could get myself into trouble because it is a brown family. But I'm being very light. I do want those shadows in there. Oh my goodness, on screen it looks really crazy dark. Yeah, it's not that dark in person, I promise. Let's see.
I like the bright light on it.
Look at the neutrals. Oh, my goodness. The neutrals that are on it are neutral because, again, it needs to be power washed. It's kind of grimy.
Super neutral.
Yeah. It's less to do with what, So I'm just kind of playing with, again, I want to keep it nice and loose. That's the one thing about these structures too. It's like,
Oh, these have an angle to them.
yeah, they
Oh,
do.
shoot.
The front has an angle that
I
matches to the
didn't notice
focal
that.
point. Because it's subtle, but it's there. Well, the top ones have an angle, so you're right. They come down.
This one should have an angle. Look at it. I'm like,
Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. You wouldn't. I mean, you can drag it up a little bit, but whatever framing or matting is going to cover a lot of it.
okay.
But
These
that's
don't
just
have
like
an
a-
angle, these do have an angle. Right?
yeah, this is just this is a point of view. Only the top 3, 4 have an angle that's
Yeah.
worth noting. The rest of it is straightens
Pretty
back out.
straight. Okay, good.
Yeah. Don't stress.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'm gonna go a little lighter.
You using a new pastel?
I am using another
I
new
gotta get mine
pastel,
out.
and I'm just kind of making very scumbly.
Yeah.
Because there's so much grime and it's all kind of mixing together. So I've got like a neutral
Yeah.
beigey
This is
color.
texture.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of playing with how this is gonna go. I know this is gonna take a heck of a lot longer than I ever wanted to spend on bricks.
Mhm.
Especially because I am terrible about like I don't want to sit there and spend all my time counting, oh, this has 4 bricks and
Yeah.
I cannot be bothered with such things. I'm not an architect. Some of the spacing isn't quite right.
Mhm.
So again, that's another reason to make it a little extra loose and not quite exact so I can. So now, if I'm looking at the value on the photograph, this is all in shadow, and right now I have it pretty bright. So that's, I think, what I'm going to focus on next is like the body of the bricks getting a little darker. Overall, but not too dark. I don't want it to be too heavy.
Cityscape had a thing at the
Yeah, isn't the opening like this weekend?
November.
Oh, yeah, it's November. So it's the first Friday in November. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. That should be a nice show. His paintings are big and bold and bright.
They're big, aren't they?
Oh, I said I want a darker, and then I keep picking up lighter. But I don't want to go too dark.
Pink. You're fine.
It's not bad. Taking this kind of, this is like a nice neutral, like mauve-y kind of color. Just kind of dragging over what's there. I can come back and highlight, but it neutralizes the darks a little bit. Again, one of those things that looks better in person than it does. Boy, it looks like dull and drab and gross on the computer screen. Of course, there's like. Hmm.
That has good calf muscles on the shorts. Did you get those in?
I did. Well, I did, and then I had to tone them down because
Because it looked
I
like the
made an
folk?
angle weird, and
Yeah.
I had to. I'm playing with like it's a deep green right now. Um, somewhat emphasizing the shadow in between, and then giving a little drag for that dinge. I may hate it later.
That's the buildings.
Goodness. All right. Let's see. Let's see. Well, I'm looking at from a distance now, my bricks look like they're the proper level of dinge, right? I'm gonna fix up some of the information here. Not too much. I don't want to go too crazy, but the right there, this whole little section in between the two ladies in the front is not nearly complete. Have to decide how much more detail I'm putting on the buildings because there's these lights that hang out above there. I could put those in there, which I might anyway.
The lights where? Oh, on top
Above
of
the
these
windows.
things, yeah.
Yeah.
So I make it interesting.
So I might do that. That will help. It's funny that yellow is working. See, it's funny how the light picks up the different colors. I added a little bit of yellow on top of the orange, and it picks up so much more.
Hmm.
Look at those shutters too. They're still kind of bugging me. I'm not quite happy with the shutters. Oh, that's kind of a gee. Kind of stopped working on that little balcony there. That back in there. Ooh, light. So if I want to put those railings on, which I will, I'll use my pencil again, which I have to go find. Actually, I think I have one in my bag here. I'll leave it as pencil for a minute, but like the front is the angle of it makes it really that's gross, makes it really tight together, so it's reading more as like one bit of
Right.
black. I can just take a little bit and drag it. I can just kind of touch a little bit of that. I can see where I'm putting my stick down. And then it looked like I had a little pop of light, which is have to make the light stand out a little more. I don't know. It's there, but it's not quite right because I didn't finish what was around it too. Those shutters up there aren't done. All right, so because I left someone out here, I am going to make this section of that brick look like the section over here that I haven't done yet, but on the photograph, I'll do that. Which it looks like it has a nice bit of highlight. Of the dragging. Great color. One of those times I get something in my hand and like, oh, this works, and I keep going. So we'll see how far I go. This is the kind of a pale yellowy green. It's more yellow than it is green. Just kind of using it to soften some things up a little bit. This almost feels like work today.
It was a lot.
I would still much rather be doing this though.
I know. There's a curve, you put a little gray on the curve. Where's it?
I still want to brighten up my sidewalk a little bit. So I'm switching gears. I'm letting my eyes rest again. So again, just keep moving around your painting so you don't hyper focus on one thing. Go into some blue. Even though it's really not bluish, but the colors that we already have down, and this is one of those Soho, so a harder stick would do the same thing. It's just kind of blending with what's there. So lighten it up a little bit.
On the sidewalk.
Yeah, on this sidewalk. Harsh. Better that to the foreground. I feel like with the location of how the right side is working, I'm still not going to put much more effort into the whole right side because there's going to be a little bit of frame or whatever right up to it. So if I put too much more in there, it's just going to be distracting. I might though lighten up some information on the bicycle. He's looking a little heavy. We have about a half hour left in this session. I will not be continuing this next week. Whatever I get done today is where it's gonna stay. And then I can decide if I'll live with it like this. Or keep going. There's all kinds of other stuff on the buildings, so it's a matter of personal preference how far you go, so for instance, there's lights on the front. There's some kind of balconies above the flags and next to the flags, and that's just, again, those are personal preference items as to how far you take them. I can put the little flagpoles coming out of there. But it's a slippery slope because the more you put in, the more you have to put in to make things make sense. So yeah, actually this needs to come down. And I'm looking here, that's technically another balcony that has greenery on it.
Did you decide to put on the lights or not?
On the what? I haven't done it yet. I'm
You're not
sure yet. I might. So if I do this, darken that up a little bit, then there's some greenery sitting there. I'm gonna do that. So that's a bit of a dark green, so I'll build into the light. That also helps, it can break up the monotony of the big old building. And there is a light in there.
I like how you see those little light through the doorway, you see that? That light? Or is it just like that?
Oh. It could be, I thought they were windows. It could be a reflection on the window from across the street.
Oh, yeah. That's what I found in the end.
So this looks like a little bit of a light fixture sitting there. So, I'm being careful and a little bit methodical when I'm choosing if I'm putting anything else in. And if I put stuff in, it's just going to be like this, where it's just super simple shapes where maybe you can figure it out, maybe you can't, kind of a thing. Um, hate it when I make a crooked line. I didn't mean to. So I'm looking at like all the people on here, like what really needs to be adjusted? Like, is there anything? I don't know if that's a match his shirt too there. It kind of does. So make that into purple family. Not that this guy would be carrying a purple bag. There we go. It's a little different. Really making him look down, and I'm fine with that. Like he's kind of looking down in my little image of how it turned out, and I'm just gonna leave it like that. Um,
Hmm.
oh, let's see. So what other details can I add without going bonkers? Yeah, because I mean, I really flattened out the fronts of my buildings just because, it just is not a lot of space to get a lot of information. But at the same time, I wouldn't be putting it in anyway. I mean, that's not not my style to put in every single detail anyway. I like to put little hints of detail, but not actual detail. Little bits of writing or whatever on the flags, but not actual detail of what the writing says. Whew. I still need to deal with this section. This is a really, really hard,
Thing.
well, yeah, hard white pastel that I'm using. So it's not really white when I'm marking. It's one of those really, really cheap ones. I definitely will be cropping about, I'm not worried about this whole section of brick, because I don't like from basic, so I'll put can. I tape like right there again. Which kind of changes things. It already kind of changes things. So let's see. I just did a drag in a neutral color just to kind of get the building to look like it's the side of the building instead of going up and down like the front of the building. So I drug in a horizontal fashion so that it'll change the directional marks a little bit. I'm just re-emphasizing a little bit. I don't want to have this lines. I do want to have a little bit more information. Whew. It's a workout. Oh, I did have a balcony drawn in over here. So I can put in some more greenery. Just a little bit. I don't want to change the overall style of what I have going on in the background there.
I see that. Oh.
But just adding a little bit of green kind of breaks that up a little bit. Which then gives me permission to add green to the right. I'm gonna stop the recording here.